sure if you know, but Canadians waste 31 million pounds of food per year. 9% of that is wasted in restaurants, and 10% of that is wasted in retail. In 2010, Canadians wasted about $27 million worth of food. That has increased to $31 million nowadays. We are willing advocating students for tasty edibles, and we are trying to make it illegal for grocery stores and restaurants to throw out their edible food.
Now, you may be thinking, why should I care? The food we throw out will turn to compost in landfills anyways. Well, in landfills, food scraps are broken down by a bacteria which produces methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas that is 4 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Also, at least 200,000 Canadians experience homelessness in any given year, and at least 30,000 Canadians are homeless on any given night. The homeless consist of both sheltered and unsheltered people, all of which are in need of a meal. As well, approximately 840,000 Canadians turn to food banks every month just to make ends meet. If we have an answer to help save people in need and protect our environment, it's our responsibility not to throw it away.
It's incredible. The recorded costs of wasting food in North America is $31 billion. However, the true cost when you consider all energy, water, and all the utilities used is $107 billion. This is something that is not sustainable. Did you know that in Canada, just under 13% of people experience food insecurity? Food insecurity is when a person does not know when their next meal is going to come. That's a scary feeling for many Canadians.
We decided to hit the streets to hear firsthand from industry experts how they're dealing with food waste in Vancouver.
Making my way downtown, walking fast, faces pass and I'm homebound.
So I'm just going to jump into the topic for this interview specifically, which is food waste. So what would be your guys' leading cause of food waste? So that's basically food that's ending up in a compost or garbage that's not physically going into somebody's body.
Okay, so I guess food waste would be if somebody ordered a dish and they didn't finish their whole meal.
Yeah.
We have a composting setup. The server brings back the dish before it goes into the dishwasher. We separate our composting. So that would be one source.
Yeah.
Another source would be over prep.
Okay.
So every single week we have a list of items and a par set to how much each dish is supposed to be sold that week.
Okay.
So we monitor that sort of every day. So heading into a weekend, say you had you thought you were going to sell 52 tuna salads.
Right.
So you would only prep in anticipation for that many salads.
Yeah.
Obviously, give or take a little bit. If your projections are wrong and you had cut too much tuna, perhaps that would be something that got to the end of its shelf life, and you have to dispose of that.
And that would go in the compost as well.
That would go in the compost as well, and unfortunately that would make it onto our waste sheet, which is something that we look at week to week to make sure that we're not doing that.
Right.
And we respond appropriately.
Yeah, because I guess at the restaurant you can look at trends from last year, or just like upcoming events, like hockey games and stuff like that. But obviously weather can play a part. Like if it's rainy, people might come, or people might not come.
Or they might order soup instead of salad because it's raining.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the time of year is definitely a factor. We see Drink trends are different as well. We obviously more red wine in the winter and more white wine in the summer. So
makes sense.
we tailor all of our ordering based on those. What we've learned over the last sort of 10 years.
Is there any companies you're working with in the Lower Mainland, like restaurants, suppliers, manufacturers, grocery stores?
Absolutely. There's a very keen interest in food waste reduction all over the Lower Mainland, in part because of the ban on the disposal of food waste and other organics that came in 2015 by Metro Vancouver. Yeah. So there are most restaurants at this point, all restaurants have to be separating their food waste and then dealing with it appropriately. Some restaurants have started composting on site, although there are some policy regulations that are barriers to that. We work with innovative companies too who are trying to deal with food waste in a different way. But just before I talk about some of those businesses, I also want to say that there are people who are working to reduce waste at the forefront. So planning your purchasing practices, planning your menu, etc., so that you're not producing as much waste anyway.
Because I guess that costs them money too. On that.
Massive, yeah.
And so is most of that for the like earth sustainability, or also is it like food banks and soup kitchens? Do you do much in the way of getting still edible food that's maybe just past its best before stamp kind of thing to sell?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a company called Mesh Exchange, for example, who is coming in. There's a perception that food that's already been out for consumption, you can't donate it because of risk of liability. So if you were to make somebody sick, that you would be sued. It's actually untrue, but their perception is persistent. There's a company called Mesh Exchange, and they actually will do the collection of food that's no longer being used. They'll store it appropriately, so make sure that it's refrigerated, and then they'll donate it wherever they can donate it, as in like to whomever wants it. Because one of the problems with food donation in our region, and most regions I would argue, is that there's a lot of food that actually people don't want. Why would the soup kitchen want 5 birthday cakes, for example? They want to make sure that the food that they're giving to their kind of clientele is healthy, as organic as possible, etc., and will help set them up for a better day than the day before. Yeah, so Mesh Exchange is doing a really interesting job there. And there's lots of other innovations like that.
So a company like Mesh, is that government funded or how?
No, they're private. They're a social enterprise. They just saw the need and they moved in.
So they might get funding from the community and things like that.
Yeah, I mean they get paid by their clients.
Yeah. Currently, we talked about that the food that's unsellable goes in the compost. If say there was an organization that were to able to come by, say at the end of each week or even the end of each business day, that took say the extra 6 orders of tuna that were never plated to like a soup kitchen or some kind of food bank, would you guys be open to that, or have you been approached before?
It's never something that's come up. I'd be curious if a food bank would be able to use the tuna that we had, because as far as we're concerned, if we're not serving it, then it's unsuitable to eat. So it would be spoiled. It wouldn't be something that we're just thinking like, oh, we don't want to serve this anymore. We're not a kitchen that would be like every day the menu's different, so maybe you're trying to procure different things on a Saturday and then the menu changed, so you're not going to serve that tuna ever again. So we try hard to avoid that, but I don't know. I mean, if that, of course, I love the idea of supporting that type of organization. I just don't know how logistically that would work, because we try to keep our waste below like probably like $40 or $50 a day if we can. And so would it be worth it for somebody to come and take that waste, that food? I don't know. I mean, that would be something that would be, I guess, a part of the experiment.
So, for example, like you guys obviously aren't getting rid of non-perishable items like cans of things.
Of course not. No.
But when it comes to deciding when a tuna is past its shelf life, like a grocery store, they have those best before stamps because it's so clear that they can't sell it. And that's kind of a date that they can't sell it, but you can consume it after.
Like
is it just
best before? So, I mean, I mean, tuna maybe isn't the best example. But as we're talking about this, I'm thinking a little bit about when we do a menu change, sometimes we've got food that we can't use anymore.
Like beans or tomatoes.
Because
lettuce.
the beans aren't in the salad anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there have been occasions where we have dead stock, and those would be non-perishable items that we don't really know what to do with because we can't really sell them. So maybe that's a type of opportunity.
So maybe it's more seasonal menu changes as opposed to every week or every day.
Yeah, the everyday thing is hard for me to put my mind around. But
because $40 is pretty low.
Yeah, it wouldn't be worth anybody's time, I don't think.
Yeah. Is this also kind of an ethical thing? You don't want to be throwing out food, or?
I would say that it's probably numbers based more than whether or not we're
whether
doing
the green
the right
issue.
I suppose not.
They kind of go hand in hand.
They do the same thing.
There's just no reason to
to throw out food. Yeah,
that's fair.
costs money.
So what we were just discussing with this documentary is kind of the government mandating it to make it basically, I guess, illegal to throw out sellable food.
Right.
And there's obviously discretion what sellable food is. But when it comes to portions,
Yeah.
like for example, White Spot, they have bottomless fries. So they start with a small amount and then you can order more. Like, do you guys find portions are, like, where do you stand on portions? Do you find a lot of foods coming back? Like that people
No,
start eating?
we actually get maybe feedback throughout the prairies and some of our other locations that our portion size is smaller than our competitors.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of, I suppose I could do a bit of an experiment.
Yeah.
I didn't do that before this interview, but watch exactly how much is coming back. But we're quite lucky that we think we have a menu that people enjoy a lot. And
Yeah.
there aren't a lot of stinkers on the menu.
Yeah.
It's clear, based on the two different viewpoints of Chris and Megan, that there is a gap when it comes to food waste knowledge. Restaurants don't think they are wasting that much because they are basing their assumptions from a bottom line point of view. They are unaware, as Megan mentioned, that there are people willing to take their unused food, which is why it is critical the government get involved in creating laws around the disposal of food.
And so how involved is government in the current food waste mandate?
It's involved to the point of regulation. So Metro Vancouver regulates our area. They put in the disposal ban in 2015, and then the City of Vancouver offered resources, saying, well, here are the companies that are doing waste haulage for organics that you can sign up with. So they try to encourage businesses to adapt that. But on the other side, businesses have to respond themselves.
Yeah.
What strategy would you say you guys use to solve the food waste problem? Is it something you take into consideration?
So that's a good question. We work with different solutions for different locations. We really do work with the on-site organizations. For instance, BCIT has a compost program, as well as a waste reduction program when it comes to how they handle certain materials. So we actively participate in that and make sure that we follow all the steps that they do. Also internally, we have what we call trim tracks, which is an internal program where we have clear waste bins. We constantly fill those so we can see what kind of waste we are using and ensure that we keep that to a minimum.
Okay. And would you say is the government involved in any way in your organizations, or do you guys ever communicate with the government when it comes to your work?
Maybe organizationally we do. Certainly at this level we do not. This school may also be involved in conversations with the government in regards to programs, but from our end, no.
In 2015, SFU rolled out the 4 train stations. Before that, all they had was garbage and paper recycling. So a lot of things like food and like tin and plastic were just kind of being put in the landfill garbage, which is a huge problem because that will just go to a landfill and sit there for years and years and years and not disintegrate. So with food scraps, you can actually compost that and turn it into soil, which can be used to grow more food. So basically it was implementing these 4 streams in every aspect of the university. So all 3 campuses, so we have the Surrey campus, the downtown campus, and the Burnaby campus, putting it everywhere in the school so that when people go and throw out their waste, they have the opportunity to actually sort it correctly, and that way things aren't just going to landfill garbage and they're actually being recycled or composted and contributing to a much lower footprint and being more sustainable and being more eco-friendly.
Okay. I guess you've already touched on this a little bit, but what triggered SFU specifically in order to start these initiatives?
So the main thing that triggered it was in January of 2016, Metro Vancouver rolled out something called the Metro Vancouver Organics Ban. So basically, there was actually a ban in January which forbid anyone from putting compost and food scraps in the landfill garbage. So it was actually a ban, so you would get charged if you put your food scraps in the landfill, which is great. So SFU kind of wanted to get ahead of the curveball and to follow the ban, and because they didn't want to get charged for all of that, which costs a lot of money. So they got ahead of the curveball and started that in 2015. And because of that, they're kind of considered a leader among other schools. A lot of places like UBC, Douglas College, and I think BCIT as well would come to us with asking about our signage and kind of how we rolled out that program. So that's a little bit of what we did.
Perfect.
And why it happened.
What would you say are some of the everyday actions that everyday consumers can take to help combat food waste? Just your own opinion.
Well, buy what you need. You know, sometimes we'll go to see a store that has club sizing or large packs because we're trying to get the value or the sales, but in the end, we're not maybe using all of that food properly or fully utilizing the food. Sometimes people don't realize that. I'll give you an example. The celery, the leaves that are on celery can be used to be put in, say, soups, for instance, or the tops of tomatoes can be cut to be added to a tomato sauce piece. There's little things like that that sometimes people don't utilize.
So in regards to the project that we're doing right now, so one of our goals is to actually make it like an obligation for grocery stores. We're talking more about food waste. So we're trying to make it an obligation for grocery stores to donate a lot of their food that they are basically wasting to people who actually need it. That's one of our initiatives right now. So I guess we'll kind of make this a two-part question. First part, do you believe that they could actually make a difference by doing this and by donating their food to people who need it?
100%. I know for a fact that when people go grocery shopping, they like to pick the nicest looking apple or the nicest looking orange. So what happens is like the ugly fruits or vegetables kind of just get pushed to the side and they don't end up selling it, which is too bad because in reality that food is actually just as good as the kind of better looking apple. So I know that a lot of that actually ends up just going to compost or maybe landfill if they're not recycling properly. So that other food potentially could be feeding so many people, or if they even just discounted the price and sold that at a lower price so that at least people were buying it and it wasn't going to waste. So I know grocery stores waste a lot and waste a lot of food that actually is really, really good, and 100% it could be used for better purposes.
Perfect. And what comments do you have, or like, do you have any advice for grocery stores where they can start pushing through with this initiative?
I think that what's lacking is maybe an education piece. So maybe there isn't somebody who works at a grocery store to kind of spearhead that movement. So maybe they kind of think it as an extra job. Like, it's really easy to just kind of like throw something in the garbage if you're not going to sell it. So if they had someone whose job it was, or someone who added this to their job to kind of spearhead the movement of taking all that fruit or vegetables that are not as nice looking that people didn't buy and just going and partnering with somewhere on the downtown east side where they could just go and give that food. There's so much potential. It's just kind of finding the person to spearhead the movement, and even if they wanted to kind of sell that food at a discounted price. It's the same as a better looking apple or banana. It's just people don't necessarily want to buy those for some reason, even though it tastes the exact same. So there's a lot of potential, and grocery stores can definitely do that.
Perfect. And I guess the last question here, what advice would you give for everyday consumers in regards to food waste in terms of helping them out?
So food waste you can definitely lower your food waste. Metro Vancouver has a really great campaign called Love Food, Hate Waste. So if you actually go on their website, it will tell you, if you say you haven't gone grocery shopping in a while and you have all this food but you don't really know what to do with it and you're like, it might go to waste. If you go onto Metro Vancouver's Love Food, Hate Waste website, if you like put in the food that you still have, it would actually come up with recipes for you based on the food that you already have. So Metro Vancouver has a lot of different tips and tricks for lowering your food waste. And even when you just first go grocery shopping, for example, there's things you can do with your produce and bananas, like putting some saran wrap on the peel of the banana. Like there's a lot of things you can do to slow down when food starts kind of going bad. So there's a lot of things, just basically like educating yourself. Basically, like if you go grocery shopping, always writing a list so you're not overbuying, and then you don't find that your lettuce or tomatoes are just going rotten. There's a lot of things you can do by planning so that your food doesn't go to waste. And then if you do find that you're not eating as much of it, you can go and donate that food, or at least compost it so it's not going in the landfill.
Awesome.
Today we have Mick from My Green Space with us. We have a few questions to ask. The first one, could you please tell me a little bit about your company?
Sure. We were founded about 2 years ago, and My Green Space helps you grow food with confidence. While we are a tech company first, we are still a one-stop shop for everything you need to grow food. As a tech company, we've built a digital space focused on an app that helps you plan, manage, and buy your food garden. From knowing which plants to grow at which season to getting reminders to water or harvest your plant, the app can help you. We also sell seeds, garden containers, and soil to physically grow your garden, delivered online or straight to your home.
What are your company goals?
Our goal is to put a food garden into every home. With the knowledge and technology we have today, such a vision should be reachable.
Was food waste a problem your company considered when creating the app?
Yeah, we considered that when creating the app. One thing we find about food waste is consumers are one of the biggest causes of waste. They buy so much food yet throw most of it away. We believe that it is usually the 3 simple ways people can decrease their food. 1, you can have a better understanding of food and how it is created/delivered. You can give people tools to limit supply their food purchases. Or 3, you can give them a community to support, supply, and receive food when necessary.
What are the direct ways that My Green Space counters the food waste problem?
Our primary methods are in education, communication, and community building.
What are some of the actions that everyday consumers can take to help combat the food waste through your app, for example?
So someone can use our app to start learning how to grow food. One big misconception that we get is that gardening is hard or you need a lot of space to grow. I live in a tiny apartment with a 1x3 planter box in my patio, and I spend a few minutes a day at most taking care of it. It's not going to feed me every day, but it will cut out food waste for things like herbs, for example. Most grocers sell a massive bunch of parsley, but I only need a few sprigs for a meal. By growing these low-use herbs and vegetables rather than buying them, I am minimizing food waste without too much work.
Are there any other suggestions you may have that would help us accomplish our goal of mandating grocery stores to donate inedible food waste?
So you can look at how other countries have done it and see how you can make it relevant for the Canadian economy. The government and the companies will want to see such a vision work, not as an added cost to their budget, but something that generates money. Another is just to do it. If you have an idea, give it a shot. You'll never know if it works until you actually try it out. Lastly, start small. My Green Space has a big vision of where we want to be in 10 years, but we also know it will take little steps to get there. The picture is a great visualization of how to start small.
Within the country of Denmark, they have actually opened up a separate section within grocery stores to cater to the homeless population and the people that are feeling food insecurity. Within France, they were actually the first government to ban grocery stores from throwing out their excess edible food. They require these grocery stores to give this to the public and feed the homeless population. And you may be wondering, what can we as Canadians do? Well, we can set targets on food waste reductions, starting with 50% by 2030. else could we do? We can incentivize Canadian corporations to donate their food waste to charities and schools rather than to the landfill. How about that?
How about Dad?
How about that? Let's go outside. We're not the only food waste advocacy group out there. There's the Greater Vancouver Food Bank and others that are willing to take on this initiative with us. We need your help, and we need you to be involved. So get at it.